Hi, everyone. This is your host, Maheen, and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast, where we're back with another exciting episode. Today, we'll dive into how small and medium sized businesses can really fortify their cybersecurity infrastructure, a topic that has become increasingly important in our digital age. Joining us today are Andrew Summerton and Dan Duran from Rhyno Cybersecurity. Andrew, with over 2 decades of expertise in sales, marketing, and operations, has played a pivotal role in transforming businesses through strategic development. And Dan, on the other hand, is a technological savant with profound insights into the cybersecurity realm, backed by substantial academic and professional experience. Together, they champion the cause of enhancing cybersecurity measures for small to medium sized businesses. Without a further ado, let's welcome both. Good afternoon and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Andrew and Dan, how are you today?
Well, I'm wonderful. Thank you, Mahif. What a lovely introduction. Appreciate that and appreciate being here.
Mahim, it's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm happy to be here sharing with our audience some of cybersecurity tips and things that you can watch for when looking into staying secure in your business.
Absolutely. And it's truly a delight to have you both seasoned professionals join us. Both of your journeys in transforming how businesses really handle cybersecurity is inspiring and essential for our listeners. Now, let's set the stage by really understanding cybersecurity challenges, right? Andrew, many small to medium sized businesses really struggle with making the right cybersecurity decisions. Let's begin by understanding what common obstacles do they face. Tell us, why do small to medium-sized businesses find it so difficult to make the necessary decisions to better protect themselves?
You know what? That's a great question, and I appreciate that. And I think it's a question that has many layers to it, because each and every business obviously have different challenges, and especially small to mid-sized businesses, because I think a lot of times they don't feel that they're necessarily at a risk or a target. And then also the bottom line, right? When you have a small to mid-sized business, you're always thinking about, how much is this going to cost me? What is the ramifications? And then, the risk reward scenario. So I think a lot of it is education and understanding that, not all solutions are the right solution for everybody. Cybersecurity is a layered approach, and, it's about mitigating risk and not eliminating it. And I think having an educated conversation with professionals helps that process. And I think the problem is, the reason they're making those challenges is it's not a profit line, it's a cost line in their minds. And in all fairness, it could be a huge savings, but they have to put the right measures in place to make that happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I second that. And when we have like many, we've been in business for quite a bit, over a decade, and we have small businesses coming to us, and the main, not excuses, but the main problems that they have. And the first one is, oh, you know what? Cybersecurity is really expensive. We can't afford cybersecurity. We go out of business if we buy or if we get a vendor that offers cybersecurity. And the reality is completely different. Cybersecurity, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's actually way more cheaper and affordable than a lot of small businesses think. The second one is like, well, you know what, Dan? We're only 5 people. We're only 10 people here in the office, and so hackers are not going to hack us. We're off the radar. They usually go for the bigger fish that they can fry. But in the reality is that most of the companies that get hacked are smaller and mid-sized businesses. I'm talking about we have clients that come to us that they've been ransomware, and they only have 10 people in their business, and they can run for a few weeks because everything is encrypted. They have lost everything. They're like getting to pay a ransom, a lot of money, like $50,000, $100,000 to a hacker. So there's this conception of small businesses that they're untouchable, but actually is quite the opposite.
It's quite clear that understanding these barriers is the first step towards robust cybersecurity measures. But can you discuss the significance of cybersecurity insurance and the challenges businesses face in obtaining it?
You know what? That's a great question again, because they kind of go hand in hand. So having the right measures in place certainly affect and help cybersecurity insurance. Now, I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I mean, I'm an expert. I'm a cybersecurity expert, but I'm not an insurance broker. We work closely with with insurance agencies, and what we've discovered and what we understand is it's becoming much more difficult, so much more difficult to get insurance and then also maintain it once you've had it. So what's really critically important is by building that infrastructure and by having the right measures in place and by working with a cybersecurity team or organization that enables you to do regular vulnerability assessments or penetration tests or have an MDR in place giving you that protection you're looking for, basically helps those insurance companies. I apologize, I keep mixing up my cybersecurity and my insurance. But the insurance companies are, they have all of the companies have to go to underwriters, and the underwriters will look at it, and it's a risk. It's a risk for them as well, right? So if they don't have the right measures in place, they're going to say, no, you don't get insurance, or it's going to cost you more. Or if you have insurance and you want more insurance because ransom attacks and everything else are increasing, then you have to have more insurance, and more protection, more coverage. And so what's really important is by being proactive as a small to mid-sized company and working with the right infrastructure, the right team, having the right measures in place, it enables you to get that insurance that you're looking for. Because what happens is with cybersecurity, it's about, again, and I said this a few times, it's about mitigating risk, right? And the insurance companies are looking for what's the least likely that these companies are going to be attacked. So therefore, they're not out any money, right? Because they don't want to pay out. But the reality of it is, the better protected you are as a company, the better chance you have of getting insurance and affordable insurance. I hope that answers your question, but I don't know, Dan, if you want to jump in there.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things. The first one is that every insurance company is going to do an external vulnerability assessment of some sorts or scan on your network. So if they find vulnerabilities or anything that might impede you getting insurance, you're going to have to fix those things. So if you go to the insurance company, they will do that nowadays because it's as Andrew mentioned, it's becoming harder. So it's not just a matter of just getting insurance. You have to be prepared and you have to have some security measures in place. So that's the first thing. As a risk advisor, also, I can tell you that there's two types of cybersecurity. The first one is a proactive, and then the second one is a reactive type of cybersecurity. The proactive focuses on having the tools and the infrastructure and the human resources in place to be able to contain, mitigate any cybersecurity events and prevent them from happening on the first place, right? The second type of cybersecurity is reactive. It's when you're not doing anything, and then all of a sudden you get hacked, and then there is a reactionary approach to try to solve the problem. And insurance, unfortunately, falls under that umbrella. So insurance does not protect you. Insurance protects you afterward when you've been hacked. That's and in considering the statistics, I don't know, Mihan, if you know, but 60% of businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, go bankrupt after a major cybersecurity attack.
Right.
60%. So yeah, you might say, I have $1 million insurance, we're protected. But what if you get ransomware and your business is not able to operate for a month or a couple of months, and not even that? What if your data is not being able to get recovered? Or even worse, what if the hackers were able to extract sensitive data? I'm talking about PII, so that's personal identifiable information. So let's say people's clients' passports, health records, all kinds of personal information. Now you can be under the on the hook for that legally, right? So you can get sued, you can get fines from the government, and so on. So the statistics are pretty bad. 60% of small and medium-sized business go bankrupt I think in 5 or 6 months after a ransomware attack or so that's the thing about insurance. It's good to have it. By all means, it's good to have insurance.
Absolutely.
But it's reactionary. So you have to have other methods in place as well.
That kind of opens up our other topic, which is the role of training in cybersecurity, because training is often so overlooked when it comes to cybersecurity. So tell us, like, how important is it to offer cybersecurity training to your employees? And could you share how effective training can prevent potential security breaches?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's probably one of the most important things you can do for your organization. I like to say it's your first and last line of defense, in all fairness. And the reason being is because an infrastructure of knowledge-based employees that are confident around cybersecurity gives you that level of protection. So majority of cyber breaches that are turn into ransom attacks or get into networks are human related. So they've downloaded or clicked on a link, or they've opened up a phishing email, what have you. And by having the right training model in place, and I'm not talking about death by PowerPoint, I'm talking about what we have an academy. So Rhyno Cybersecurity Academy. It's a slow drip, 6-month process. It has a risk assessment. It has a couple of videos weekly with Q&As. And what that does is it builds a culture of trust and understanding, not a culture of fear. And I think that's critical. When you have an understanding or a knowledge base that you can draw from through the right training methods, you are now helping protect your organization. So again, at the very beginning, I mentioned to you, the layered approach, like an onion effect, right? Cybersecurity is a layered approach, and cybersecurity training, your employees are critical in that building, in that layer. So because again, they're the ones who have that trust. They're the ones who are in your network. They're the ones who have control. So if they're doing things wrong, potentially them inviting potential risks into your network. So if they're trained properly and with the right organizations and with the right process, and again, building trust and concept and a culture of trust and a culture of understanding versus fear, I think you're going to have a much better result. And then back to your question earlier about the insurance, that also helps. It's all a process. They're looking at those type of factors that help get you that insurance, but then ultimately mitigating that risk of anything ever happening to you. So I think it's critical that you, and any small, whether you have 5 employees or you have 500 employees, you have regular cybersecurity training. And it's important what type of training, to your question.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I was trying to, while you were talking, Andrew, I was trying to get kind of like the stats, because I love stats. I don't know why I mean, I'm very technical when it comes to this stuff, so I like looking at stats, and it's stats and phishing attacks. Well, first simple, human error in general. It's like 90% of all the attacks happen because of human error, and we can consider human error as phishing attacks. So that's the first kind of vector that the attackers try to attack. So it's deceiving employees, doing social engineering, so phishing campaigns, landing pages, and all of that to try to get your information, which is the easiest way to do it. Usually, it's easier to fool a human than a machine, right? So that's a concept, and a lot of people unfortunately fall victim to phishing attacks, and then they get the credentials stolen, and then the hackers are able to pivot into the companies. So 90%, I think it's 91% right now. I was looking at the Proofpoint. Proofpoint is a major cybersecurity company that specializes on anything that has to do with phishing, and they have a huge report, 2023 phishing report. I was looking at the stats to see what the current stats are. So human error. So phishing is the first line, and that is 100% training, right? You can solve that very easily by training your staff. You can mitigate all the risk by just having, and it's very affordable. Like if you come to Rhyno Cybersecurity, you ask us for a quote, we can send you one, and you'll see that it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, especially if we're a small business, right? So you can train your staff on cybersecurity. And the second part of human error is anything that unfortunately people do, like sometimes you don't have an IT person in-house that is very knowledgeable, or you're taking matters into your own hands. So you're working with your firewall and your endpoint security protection, your antivirus, and many things, but you don't know what you're doing. So sometimes what happens is that if there's a misconfiguration problem, or you're leaving the door open for a hacker to come in and like do some pretty serious stuff inside of your network. So that's the other part of human error. So it's not just the phishing, but the other side of it. But training, to answer your question, training is extremely important. It's just as important as having a firewall, having endpoint protection, and all of the technical stuff. The human component is critical for your business.
Now, indeed, empowering employees through training is a critical defense strategy against cyber threats. And listeners, as we delve into the importance of cybersecurity awareness training, it's quite crucial to reflect on how informed your own team is about potential threats, because engaging in regular training isn't just a preventative measure, but it's an essential strategy to empower your employees and protect your business from the inside out. Now, let's discuss the tech evolution in cybersecurity because Dan, I mean, having been immersed in the tech and cybersecurity fields, you've witnessed firsthand the evolution of threats and defenses both. As a cybersecurity CTO and risk advisor, what should small or medium-sized businesses focus on to strengthen their cybersecurity network?
You're in terms of AI,
Mhm.
are you asking? Okay, yes. So AI is, I mean, it's everywhere. It's ChatGPT and all the other MLL models out there. They're pretty much everywhere, and there's good things about that, and there's bad things about that as well. So the first one, the good thing is that as cybersecurity professionals, we are completely embracing AI to help us analyze and do threat hunting and threat intelligence when we have like when we're doing our analysis. So our SOC team, so that's our secure operations center, is able to piggyback on AI, which we have implemented and developed in-house as well as part of our Rhyno AI. Right, so Rhyno AI, it helps us quite a bit. It really helps. There's the thing about cybersecurity is that the earlier you can catch something, the better, right? You're able to mitigate most of the problems. You're able to target those problems within 10 minutes, right? So by having humans trying to analyze and do threat hunting, that might expand your time, and then you're more susceptible to getting more deeply and worse into into the hacking or whatever is happening inside of the network. So the AI does a fantastic job and can spit out information for you to analyze within seconds. So it is really changed how things are done. That's a good thing. The bad thing is that hackers are utilizing AI tools to be able to hack people. So now, for example, now if you get a phishing email, it might look very convincing. It might not look like the old time. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you were born when we had the those Nigerian prince email scams going through in the 1980s, 1990s, right? So now the emails might look very legitimate. The landing pages might be very legitimate. Like the scams might be very legitimate because they sound and they look like it is somebody that you know. So especially when somebody's calling you, and the AI is able to replicate somebody's voice, for example, and deep fakes and all of that. So we are heading into an era that where AI is going to be very prominent in cyber attacks. So having said that, as a small business owner, what you have to do is just look out for those cues. Keep yourself informed on what's going on in the world, and perhaps hire a company like Rhyno Cybersecurity. We have an amazing product called Managed Detection and Response, which is our Rhino Guard that works. We set up a machine, we set up our service inside of a network, even if it's a small network like 10 people. We have some companies that are very small, like 5 to 10 people, where we have a box where we analyze all the data that's going through in the network 24/7. So
Mhm.
you don't have to hire a cybersecurity specialist in-house or have somebody working on a contract. This is a per user per month fee that we charge, and it's very affordable. It's very affordable. So I will invite all small businesses to inquire about the service, because and we provide free demos, for example, and trial accounts, so you can give it a try and give us a try at Rhino Cybersecurity, right?
No, it's great to learn more about the role that AI is playing in cybersecurity and your views on its growing influence. Now, let's test. I mean, you mentioned a little bit more about the managed detection and response stuff, into testing. But let's kind of delve deeper into this. I mean, penetration testing is a vital component in assessing a company's vulnerability to cyber threats. Andrew, this is for you. Why should companies perform penetration tests annually, and how does a managed detection and response complement this?
Yeah, no. So, I think it's really important, depending on the industry you're in. But, you know, technology has advanced so much, to Dan's point, and it's a living organism. And the reality with that is, you're always introducing potentially new threats. And when you introduce new threats to your network or your infrastructure, you're opening up a door to potential hackers coming in. And I always like to use an analogy that, imagine you have a hole in the side of your building and it's huge. Anybody can get into it. But if you actually, you basically mitigate that to the point where, or, to a pinhead, and then you're moving it around on a regular basis, what it does is it stops basically the chance of a hacker potentially getting in. It's never let any organization tell you that they're going to guarantee 100% they can stop cyber attacks from happening. You're going to get hacked. It's not reality. It's about mitigating that risk. And a penetration test, to answer your question, is going to give you, or give the professionals, a chance to go into your network and do a deep dive and create proof of concepts and identify all the vulnerabilities and give a risk assessment and then recommendations to how to fix those potential vulnerabilities that are pivoting points or entry points for cyber attacks. And so what happens is, and a lot of industries it's critical, to back all the way to one of the first questions with insurance, where I was a little tongue tied back and forth back then. But in regards to insurance, penetration tests are very, very critical for maintaining your insurance as well. Because again, it's not just about doing a pen test. The post patching is very important at the end of a pen test. So you can do a deep dive on a pen test in an organization. A very detailed report will be sent off to that organization, which there'll be like a C-level executive type of summary, so they can see what's happening. But then you have the detailed aspect where the IT team or an MSP will go in and they'll mitigate those and fix those vulnerabilities. That's the critical point. And then making sure that's done with a post-patching verification at the end. Because it's one thing to identify the vulnerabilities, it's another thing to fix them. That's the critical point. So make sure that when you do a penetration test or vulnerability assessment, that those are being fixed. And then to answer your question in regards to an MDR, or a managed detection response solution, what that does is it's basically like an air traffic controller. And what it does is it sees all the traffic coming in and out and all the activity. And because of AI, to your earlier point to Dan, because of the human component and because of the software and the equipment and all of the reporting process, we are able to identify in real time potential threats that do happen to get through. So even though you've done your penetration test, even though you've done all the mitigation, but again, like I said, it's a living organism. So there's always potential risk, human factor, as we talked about, or introduce some type of new technology into your network, potentially a risk could happen. So with an MDR, you always have eyeballs, professional eyeballs, and AI looking and monitoring your network 24/7, 365, giving you that peace of mind. So as a business owner who's away on vacation or away on the weekend or at night when no one's there, they can rest comfortably knowing that professionals are overseeing and managing that process. So it is a layered approach, as I mentioned. So I hope that answers your question, but I think in a roundabout way, that's the critical aspect of a penetration test and how an MDR can complement that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I like to also point out is that managed detection and response is a complementary tool. Okay, so it's not there's no, and I agree with Andrew. Like there's no such a thing as 100% security. And not only that, but since it's a layer approach, it's a layer type of industry, you have different dimensions. You have the human dimension, you have the endpoint. So that would be layer 2 in the ISO model. You have layer 3, the network. You have transport, which is the applications layer. So you have all of these things moving around. For all of them, you need a tool. You need a firewall for your network. You need antivirus or endpoint protection and response for your computers. You need server security. You need all of these things. MDR is a network driven application or software system. It complements everything else. And the reason I'm saying this is because a penetration test or a vulnerability assessment is the first thing that a company should do. It is absolutely the first thing. So especially a vulnerability assessment, there's a difference between penetration test and vulnerability assessment. Penetration test is kind of like a deeper dive into what is not just vulnerable but hackable. So we act as hackers going into the systems and trying to exploit the system. A vulnerability assessment is doing scans to see if there are vulnerabilities in your network, in your company, and then from there validating them and then giving you a report on what it is next that you can fix. Right. So the first thing is you don't know where you are, you don't know what you have, you don't know what technologies you have, and if you do know, you don't know if they are vulnerable or not. So the first line of work that you should do with a consultancy or with a cybersecurity company like Rhyno would be to do a vulnerability assessment. You do a vulnerability, it's just like going to the doctor, right? So you have a pain in your stomach, you go to the doctor is going to say, okay, let me do a diagnosis. So I'm going to do an examination to diagnose something. And afterward, the doctor is going to tell you, oh yeah, this is the element that you have. Now I'm going to recommend you go to the pharmacy and get some medicine, right? And now we're going to start the treatment. It's exactly very similar. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's very, very similar, right? So as the professional, we go in, we do an examination of what's going on inside of your company. And the more layers that we add, the better. The more holistic it is, the better, because we can analyze different parts of the company, whether it's human, whether it's technology, all of that stuff. Once we do the analysis, you're going to get a report that tells you exactly what you need to do in terms of the recommendations. And for small business work, it's going to say, okay, you need to change your firewall. You need to, add this, you need to configure this, you need to do cybersecurity awareness training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So here's your report card. Hopefully it's not going to be that bad. Most of the time it is for small businesses. And then when you have that, then you're going to say, okay, how do we fix these things? We can help you as a cybersecurity IT company. We can help you, but there are many people out there, IT professionals that can do that job. And then after, you can come back to the doctor and say, okay, doctor, we fixed all this stuff. Can you actually check? And then we go back, and that's what Andrew was saying. That post-patching verification is very important. We go back and verify that everything is fixed properly. So it is that's how it should be done. Vulnerability assessments are actually not very expensive to do. Penetration testing is usually more expensive because it's more involved. And a penetration test is usually done when the company knows where they're standing, right? Vulnerability assessment is more like an audit at the very beginning of your cybersecurity, career or cybersecurity period or maturity period.
No, thank you. I mean, both of your insights really underscores the importance of regular assessments and maintaining a secure business environment. And it's great to learn that choosing the right partner is evidently as critical as implementing the cybersecurity measures themselves. Now, as we near the end of our discussion, Andrew and Dan, your expertise has been incredibly enlightening. And for our entrepreneurs and business owners listening today, what final piece of advice would you offer to someone that's just beginning to navigate the complexities of cybersecurity, and what should be their first step towards a safer digital environment?
I mean, I guess I'll start, and I think it's really important to have the understanding to reach out to an organization that is a complement to you. So, and what I mean by that, or to your team. So they work collaboratively with you. Lines of communication are open. Don't ever believe that, one package fits all organizations. It's really important, I guess, to have transparency and have a true understanding of what your experts are implementing or what they're asking you to implement. And by doing so, it's going to give you that confidence and that peace of mind. And I think that is a great starting point. And to Dan's point earlier, and I'm sure he'll reiterate, is doing a vulnerability assessment on your network to truly understand where you are currently and then what those recommendations are. And I think just to wrap it up, as a small to mid-sized business, don't think that it's price prohibitive to have the right measures in place. I mean, I'm going to give you an example. As a small business, let's say you have 12 employees. And the reason I'm sharing this with you, because I think it's really important to hear a number. But as an MDR, imagine implementing an MDR, a managed detection response, into your network that gives you 24/7, 365 protection from cybersecurity professionals. And that cost would be under $250 a month. No upfront fees, and it would only cost you, like I said, just under $250 a month. So imagine having a team of professionals monitoring your network and working directly with you for, I can't even explain what percentage of a cost that would be to have one employee, never mind, 24/7, 365 protection. So I think, to answer your question, Mian, is basically find an organization, Rhyno or someone in your area. We work internationally, actually, but it doesn't, that said, find someone you're comfortable with and that has complete transparency with you and great communication. And I think that's going to help get you to where you need to be. That would be my best recommendation, I think.
Yeah. One of the things that you asked, I think it's very important, Mahina, is that how do you choose a company, right? How do you know what you're getting? And yes, in every business, in every industry, and this is kind of like an advice generally for every industry, very basically, it's making sure that you verify their credentials, right? Like the company's credentials. Make sure that you actually they give you references and you call those references to make sure that you can validate some of the work they've done. And sometimes, like your gut feeling is very important, right? So if you get on a call or you have a face-to-face or a video call with the supplier or the vendor, you got to have a gut feeling that these guys, they know what they're talking about and they're super nice, personable, trustworthy. The key about cybersecurity is that trust is the most important factor in cybersecurity. And the main reason I'm saying is that is because you're letting people into your company to do assessments, right? So they're gonna find a lot of bad stuff, and they might find bad stuff, but that information needs to be kept confidential. It needs to be, so there's a lot of trust involved in this business. So and that's one of the problems that a lot of companies, not just small size companies or medium size and large companies, have, that they don't act on it because they don't know and they don't trust, right? So you have to create a trustworthy relationship with the vendor. So you have to do those checks. You have to have them in place. And once you're confident and you're actually you can pinpoint the company that you're going to deal with, then you have to give out that trust as well. We have many times where we have gone in, done assessment, but they say, you know what, you can test this, but don't test this other thing because we don't want you to, or we're not giving you access to this, and that's lack of trust. Because some companies are like very restrictive, and they're like, we don't want anybody touching our stuff or our confidential information or anything like that. So it is a trust-based type of business, and as such, you have to take precautions. Completely understandable, and you have to do your homework, just like any other industry, right?
No, thank you once again, Andrew and Dan, both of you, for sharing your invaluable insights with us today. I mean, we really appreciate you taking the time to guide our listeners through the essential aspects of cybersecurity. Thank you again for your time.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Mike.
And to everyone tuning in, please don't forget to subscribe to the Canadian SME Small Business Magazine for the latest updates and expert advice. Thanks to our partners, our exclusive banking partner, RBC, shipping partner, UPS, accounting software partner, Xero, and email partner, Constant Contact. Visit our website, CanadianSME.ca, for more resources. Until next time, stay proactive about your cybersecurity and continue to innovate safely. Thank you.